Hello, this is Surya Saha, and welcome to the Insurtech Story Podcast, the platform to spread knowledge on insurance innovation, digital disruption, and entrepreneurship. Our website, insurtechstory.com, and we are available on Spotify, Apple, and Google. Today, we are going to discuss on the topic culture and technology for modern insurance. And to discuss the topic, we have a special guest, Matt Cannoli, who is the founder and CEO of Sonar Global. Matt has worked across innovation for the past 15 plus years, and in his early 20s, he founded an innovation agency which worked with household brands around the world. It ultimately grew to become UK's #1 digital agency. Matt subsequently went on to build and invest in a number of tech startups, and recognizing the need to help insurers better adopt and innovate, Matt founded Sonar, a leading insurtech scouting and open innovation business. Sonar's intelligence is used by leading insurance companies around the world, including Allianz, Generali, Vitality, Munich Re, and Tokyo Marine, to mention a few. It helps them to identify opportunities and succeed in today's changing world. Matt is a regular public speaker and enjoys meeting people who share his passion for new and groundbreaking ideas. So, Matt, welcome on board. We are truly excited to have you for the show.
Look, thank you so much. I loved it's what I always enjoy about these things is the secret conversations that you have just beforehand, Surya. And you talking about how tired you were, and yet what an introduction, full of life and full of beans, and it's a delight to be here. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Matt. So, Matt, would you like to tell our audience a bit about Sonar?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned in your introduction, so we position ourselves as an insurtech scouting and open innovation business, but let's unpick that because it means nothing to anybody outside of the industry. So what do we do as a company? We ultimately help our clients. So as you mentioned, so Generali, Tokyo Marines, Alliances, RGAXs, all of these guys. So tens of very large insurance companies all around the world. We help them better understand how their markets are changing and who the companies are that are driving that change. So what we do and how we do that as a business is we sit on the data of millions of startups and scale-ups on a global basis. So whether that's out in Asia or it's in deepest, darkest South America. And what we are able to do is we're able to make use of the data that we house to draw insight and intelligence into what are the trends locally or globally, what are the trends near term or far term, or within the aspect of the value chain that are changing the insurance landscape. And what we're able to do is through our platform business is we're able to offer our clients a subscription to our platform, which provides them information on the trends, but more importantly, the individual companies that are behind the change. And equally, we have an advisory side of the business that helps dive into markets a little bit deeper, helps get POCs off the ground, that kind of thing. So that's what we get up to at Sonar.
Fantastic. Due to the interest of time and to jump onto the topic of today's discussion, culture, being one of the important aspect in every companies, and when we talk about digital transformation, culture, becomes one of the central part of such initiatives, right? So, as we say, culture is a mentality. It's how every employee interacts within the company, represents their brand, and connects with their customers. And as digitalization continues to sweep across the insurance sector, how do you see technology and culture coming together to shape this industry for the future?
It's a really big question, and it's a really interesting question. So culture, rightly put, is an absolute key enabler, if not the key enabler, to driving change in an organization, almost beyond technology. So it's a really fascinating journey that the market has been on. Okay, so we're just with this insurance lens, and so we've been talking over the last 5 years plus about this need to innovate, the need to disrupt, the need to change today, or you will be irrelevant tomorrow, and that narrative is somewhat changing. But there's definitely a recognition and a maturity in the industry that there is a need to evolve. COVID being a great accelerant of that, and it's a well-trodden discussion. And so what you have is you have, for most companies, this recognition, as I say, to move from point A to point B, and there's a debate on what point B looks like, and it's going to be relevant to each company. So different to each company, but how you get from point A to point B is a really interesting task. And in my introduction of Sonar, it's very easy to say what you need to do is you need to buy an Insurtech, or partner with an Insurtech, or build some technology to enable you to get there. But the honest truth is that's incredibly difficult / almost impossible unless you have the culture to support that. And so from a cultural perspective, then it's how do you address culture to enable that transition, whether it's a transformational piece of work or it's an innovation piece of work. And ultimately that has to start right from the top. So if the CEO, if the board members are not behind driving change across their organization, then it doesn't matter how good the technology is out there or within your business. You will not be able to use it effectively. And so from a cultural and technology perspective, the two have to intertwine. But culture drives transformation and innovation beyond anything else. I'm not sure I answered your question perfectly there, but we can happily dig into any of that if you wish.
Of course. I mean, as you rightly said in the beginning, that it's a vast topic. It's difficult to just come to the point. But again, it's difficult to define. But what matters is how we bring forward our opinion, our perception that would help our to shape this.
I think so. And I think so within that. Yeah, and within that, these businesses, it's to be respectful to these businesses. They are built and designed for today and to succeed in today's climate. And today's climate, if we look at the economy around us, it's a tough environment to be in. Full stop. The margins are low, the interest rates are high. All of this stuff is putting pressure on insurance companies globally, as well as other industries. So it's not an easy business to be in. And then what we're doing is we're saying, and you need to evolve, and you need to adapt, and you need to innovate.
Absolutely.
And that's putting additional pressure on these companies that are simply not set up or designed to do this. And I think that's where that kind of the interest for me lies. Is how do you move them onto that next step? Yeah.
I would just like to add on to that insurance specifically being a very traditionally driven sector, there's kind of a resistance to change. And when you like to adopt to various new emerging technology, how the culture plays the role to actually drive that would actually make a bigger difference. I think that would be a global phenomenon, not just regional.
So a question to you is, where does that reluctance to change start and stop?
Yeah,
who owns that?
So I think it would depend. Who owns that would be the insurance companies who are actually trying to adopt to change, adopt to new technologies, and how they are trying to bring in people to actually learn new things to move forward. Because it's more of a traditionally a conservative kind of a setup that was being driven all these years. Right.
Yeah, but I think maybe the question is kind of who within the organization, and I think that's the challenge that we see.
Yeah, I think it's a top-down approach for certain.
It has to be, right?
Yeah,
it has to be, and I think it's really difficult then when you're then unpicking that a little bit further as to why some are less reluctant than others, and maybe even let's turn that into a positive. Some are absolutely driven for change and excited by change, and others aren't. And I think in part, there again, so many complexities. But if your remuneration is that in 3 years, in 5 years, you're getting a golden handshake for meeting your shareholder requirements and barely affecting any change, because actually you just simply need to just keep the numbers ticking over, ticking over, ticking over. And when the economy is crashing around you, to be able to achieve that in a short-term perspective, you get your remuneration, you get your golden handshake, your forever pension and the rest. Then are you as a leader incentivized to disrupt the status quo and make changes that could potentially both infect the short term, but also are introducing risk on the longer term? And it's a really difficult choice, that, and I do understand it.
Yeah, true. I mean, this brings me to a quick follow up that do you think technology is inspired by culture?
What a great question. No, I don't think technology is inspired by culture. And I think great technology can come in absence of culture. I think to create any great business, whether you're a technology business or a non-technology business, culture has to permeate through that company for it to succeed. But I think in terms of the origination of an idea, which is at the essence of a technology play, I think I don't think culture is required. I think a deep understanding. I mean, maybe then we get into the definition of culture, but a deep understanding of requirements, whether they're user or business requirements, and solutions that can come off the back of that, right. Or equally some pure tech smarts that can be developed, and thinking sort of, I don't know whether it's AI, ML, and all the rest, but it's I think, but I think the bringing in of technologies for advancement, or the synergies that exist between companies and enabling technology to advance a business, then that is kind of culture critical for success.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Just moving on to our next question for the day. Can you list some of the potential cultural barriers or obstacles that is making insurance companies slow to evolve digitally, if you think there is any?
Yeah, so absolutely. Look, I think I think so. We've mentioned it a couple of times. So starting from the top, right? So it's a sense from a leadership perspective to get behind and support this. So maybe let's explore that just for a little bit further. So within that, I think it's truly believing that change is necessary, and if you don't, it's never going to work. So and I think that is a capability, right? So that, and certainly from a mindset perspective, at least, which I see as a subset of capability, and so it's understanding strategically that very soon, and I mean that in the next 5 or 10 years, that we'll start to see a divergence in performance between those who are innovating strongly and those who aren't innovating at all. And to the extent that I truly believe this separation in performance lines will be very, very difficult / impossible for some to catch up on. And as in the conversation at a recording yesterday, a chap who I was chatting with, we talked about sort of tier 3, tier 4 businesses, and he talked about almost they're putting their hands up, just waiting for the candle to burn out. They're just simply biding their time, biding their time for failure. So I think you have to believe that change is necessary. Yeah. Then it's a level of actually what are the ambitions of the business, and if you're driving and leading that strategy, what are the ambitions that you're going to set for the business? And I think there's something really interesting that a lot of the clients, or sorry, a lot of the companies that we see, seriously lack that ambition. And it's it's tough, I get it, but that is a criticism, and it's certainly not true with the clients that we work with, and we set our mandate as a business that we will only work with ambitious clients, and we actively decline the opportunity to work with those who we don't see as ambitious, because they're not going to want to move the needle. The relationship will go no further for us. Yeah. So from a leadership perspective, I think it's really critical to do that. But then other factors, in answer to your question, is it kind of stems from there, but it's how does that unlock the future opportunities. And you'll hear these, this rhetoric in the market, but it's very operationally. It's making sure that time is made available to scout for innovation. If you don't know how the markets are changing and who those players are, then you're basing everything on an opinion as opposed to kind of quantifiable data, and so making time to scout for opportunity, making time to try new things, to experiment, absolutely critical. Making time for failure and accepting that culturally, that it's not a bad thing as long as you're learning from that failure. And that's a classic startup 101 type mentality. And again, yesterday, we talked. Sorry, this is a separate conversation, but it plays
please
into
go ahead, yeah.
To answer your question. But it's we talked about actually, for a lot of the models out there are all about professionals within the corporate incumbent environment helping startups better understand the landscape. And actually, what's almost required is the opposite, which is startups sitting within the corporate fabric and helping them better understand how to experiment, how to challenge, how to fail fast, how to learn, how to, and actually it's almost kind of the other way around that's required, because it's difficult to change, the people, the process, and if you're going to change or unblock, whether it's kind of the mentality at leadership level or it flows through, the entire business, then there has to be an evolution in capability. There has to be a different way, a mindset, different way of thinking, but also a different set of skills that are learned to build, to partner, to whatever, and that stems all the way through to the legal aspects of how do you form a new relationship with a potential startup partner, because actually
Right.
9 months of with due diligence and T's and C's and all the rest could potentially drown that business. Maybe that's not the business you therefore want to get into bed with, but equally you guys need, the industry needs to make sure that it's changing alongside the requirements that are placed upon it as a business. So it's evolving a little bit faster. It's changing the pace and the way it thinks, to be able to innovate at pace, to be able to transform at pace, because it's that pace that if they're not working at speed, then by the time they're through their 84 concurrent projects, all they're doing is they're going to be back at zero, because the industry will have moved on at such pace that by the time they finish their projects, they'll have just about caught up with yesterday as opposed to today.
Yep. I think some of the greatest challenge that the insurance sector, is facing is it really doesn't relate to the software or the solutions or the technology that they're developing. It's more to do with the process of change they're actually trying to, face, or the execution that they go through. And you rightly mentioned about partnership. I think that's where culture also plays a very critical role. How big incumbent insurers can actually well draft a robust partnership with Insurtech players. That will also define their future journeys on how they execute technology and culture together.
Sorry, we do tons of this stuff. We do with our clients, and we often we step into our these big insurance companies who have a partnership in play, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not great, but invariably these partnerships are from a startup that has proactively pitched them to work with, which is great. Equally, they've done no kind of due diligence as to who are the competitors of this startup. In fact, even the prioritization within the business. Is it what is our greatest need? Is this startup able to solve that need or provide us new opportunity? So very little work has taken place around that. Then very little due diligence around, is this the right business to be partnering with? And then in terms of the partnership itself, I mean, there's a whole load of learning that goes into how on earth do we validate this as an opportunity without spending tons of money, without spending tons of time. And you hear time and time again, and you're seeing this still where, it was £1 million POC or $1 million POC that took it 12 months. It's like, that's just not a POC, right? A POC is a 3-week period, which is inexpensive, that can validate yes or no, which is both very important. with a spend of maybe $25,000, $50,000. And that's where it becomes really interesting. But how on earth do you learn how to do that? And that's where companies like Sonar, but there are other companies out there which can guide you and help you through that that partnership journey.
Do you see this as kind of a cultural challenge as well? The POC
Yeah,
example
totally.
which you gave.
Yeah, it does. I mean, how on earth do you convince? First of all, how on earth do you convince a senior team to unlock the money's not never. Sorry, the money's not always and often not the main problem. It's often how do you release a team for 3 weeks solid to work on the validation of an opportunity when you've got so much stuff to do, right? As a business, you've got 1,000 things on your plate always, and that's because these are efficient, well-built machines, these companies. So how do you say, actually, what we need is something different to anything you've seen in the past? So we need 3 weeks of person A, B, and C. And that's normally the most difficult thing to get these things off the ground. But what's really interesting is if you get the process right, i.e., right from the top, they've engaged and said, look, we need to drive our business forward. You build them that engagement consistently throughout this process of understanding what the business problem is, understanding how we might solve that from a partnership within the industry, and then how we might, over a few weeks, both select the right partner, but also then validate an opportunity and provide them the mini business cases, the opportunity to sign off, etc. As soon as we change the culture, it unlocks new opportunities. And honestly, the two are so intertwined. But engaging those guys at the top from the outset is critical to that.
Yeah.
If they're not already.
I must add to that what you guys are doing it's really innovative. It's not just an usual Insurtech startup.
Yeah, right.
The focus that you have, it's actually solving a real problem that the industry is facing, which perhaps and ironically they themselves are not aware of.
Yeah, I think so, and it's tough when there's a great expression of pushing water up a hill. It's tough standing in front of boardrooms and saying, "Look, the world is changing. Trust me." And I've had enough of that to last me a lifetime. And we get invited to talk to teams all over the world to say this stuff. But at least what we have at Sonar is we have data to back up just how the world is changing, right? And then it makes my life a lot easier. It makes my job a lot easier. But also, how others, and this interests me more, is because I don't think the conversation isn't how the lemonades and hippos are going to steal your lunch anymore. I think it's much more around you are company X, how is company Y innovating differently to you, and where will they be in 5 years versus where will you be? As well as what the big techs are up to and all the rest. So strategically, I think the conversation has matured to a level of, look, we know we need to do something. So what on earth do we do? And that's where we step in and we can help and guide. But look, I mean, I think you're bang on. It's thank you for your comment as well. I think we do play a very different role in the industry, but ultimately, with my background and all I want is to see change happen. And see change happen at a pace that is sustainable for the industry, and that actually we can do some real good with building some incredibly strong global businesses out there, and build on hundreds of years of success for them.
True, fantastic work there, Matt. I mean, big congratulations to you and your team.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah. So the last question for the day, Matt. What's your advice to new age insurers on developing the modern insurance culture? Especially to bridge the gap between industry, services, and products.
Yeah, so I think so you can come at it from a technology perspective, and you see it again and again where conversations around, we're constantly creating brand new technology. There is no legacy in the stuff that we have, and we can accelerate the pace of change beyond any incumbent, right? So there's the technology lens of keep stuff fresh, use the greatest minds out there, and think differently, and all those kind of attributes. Right. Actually, I'd probably focus rather on the cultural side. and even just the mindset perspective. So it's making sure that you're creating an environment, a place that is attractive to work in, right? So, this is where then you touch on things like diversity, making sure that your workplace attracts the best talent out there. And coming from as a European business, we often refer to kind of white middle-aged men, acting as the boards of these big companies, and it doesn't need to be and shouldn't be that type of business, right? So diversity is key, and I'm not just talking from a sex or a race perspective. Equally, then it's actually what excites me about being part of this business. So if I am the greatest talent, what is it that will make me come and join your company? So having purpose tends to be an incredibly valuable route to attracting talent, right? So what is your purpose as a business, and clearly define that. And then also, what's your vision, right? So I've talked about big companies seriously lacking ambition, and I know that's a very easy way to wrap stuff up, but it's like, how on earth can you create a vision that attracts people to come on board, but also, how can you continuously strive to achieve that vision? And I think that, for me, is one of the most interesting sort of foundations. And we see this again, with the entrepreneurs out there in the market. They might start with a product line or a business. They get a bit of success, bit of capital coming into the business as well, and suddenly they're expanding not only by territory but also other product lines.
Yep.
Even then exiting and setting up new businesses. And so you have this kind of cycle of really, what's the word I'm looking for, the phrase I'm looking for? I don't know, just a really virtuous circle of success that continuously ramps up within the industry. So having kind of this ambition, ensuring that culturally you're a place that wants to attract or is able to attract the best talent, and then you keep driving for excellence. I think you're going to achieve something pretty special, no matter what your business is. Whether it's a tech business or non-tech business, but do that above anything, and then the rest of the company will flow. I'm really convinced about that.
True. No, I mean, great points you have brought out there, Matt. So, we have come to the end of today's fantastic talk on culture and technology for insurance. Thank you, Matt. It was a fantastic discussion. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, and a true delight to have you as our guest. And lastly, to wrap this up,
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
To wrap this up, thank you for listening, and see you at our next episode. Take care and stay safe. Goodbye for now.